And welcome back, everybody. We're talking to CEOs and business leaders. And today we've got another fantastic guest. President of Zonez, Sande Golgart is here. Sande, how you doing?
Doing well. Thanks a lot for having me, Bob.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Thanks for being on. I'm real excited about our conversation today. Why don't we start? Let's just jump right into it and tell me a little bit about yourself and what you're doing there at Zonez.
Yeah, sure. So, kid that grew up in Colorado, played basketball at the university before making my way out to the coast when my wife and I decided that's where we ultimately wanted to live. Well, I was by the water. Somehow found myself through a couple of initial false starts career-wise, but I knew I wanted to get into real estate. It always fascinated me. So I got into real estate through a company called Regis that does the shared office space, similar to what WeWork made more famous later on. Ran about 250 locations, did that for 16 years as a senior vice president in the West and northern part of the North America. And I was always fascinated in that business. You know, our job was to maximize revenue per square feet, which means basically, how do we make it the most efficient floor plan we can possibly make to give people what they want to do their best work whenever they need to do that work? And I was always amazed when I would tour locations. We had several there in La Jolla and San Diego, all the way across, the U.S. Now it was about 3,000 total at the time. And you could see really easy opportunities. And I'm sure, a lot of facilities managers see this today, of opportunities to change something, make it a little different, better. But when I would come back to the finance people, we would map it out. We would get the quotes. We would go to the architect. We'd go through the whole 9 yards. It made a ton of sense for the business all the way up until the point of how long it took, how disruptive it was going to be, and how expensive it was going to be. And at the end of it, it was still going to be just as painful if we ever wanted to change it again. So we better get it right, only to find out I never got a single build out 100% right, because, life and business moves too fast. Companies are growing, they're shrinking, needs are changing. And real estate just it's very difficult. With all the governance issues tied into real estate, it's very difficult to change it and make it flexible. So I started after 16 years getting an itch to look into how could we make it easier to alter your space. And I got very much into modular construction. And wouldn't it be incredible if you needed to make a change, you could order a kit of parts, but the kit of parts was code compliant. It followed UL, electrical, you could do fire suppression, but you could build what you want. If you wanted a really nice office in a big open area, you could do it in a weekend, not have to wait 6 months and not have to go through a bunch of disruption. And then ultimately, could you change it so that people could get access to the space they want when they need it to do their best possible work, which is a lot of what, the different metrics and software that track utilization. They find if you give people access to places to do their best work, those are the places that are most highly occupied, not because people sit there all day, because they go in, do their best work, and they get out, and someone comes in behind them. It just makes for a much more fluid, much better supported workforce, and then much more cost effective, because your utilization of your space, you can get away with a third of the space that you once needed. Now all that's being accelerated with with COVID and everything else, and people needing to work from home and all of that. So as the president of Zonez, we've taken a modular construction system. We've created some really nice Class A fire rated materials so that you could get the office that you want with glass and all the things that you would expect. And you could get something built, designed, built, engineered, and installed, in a matter of weeks as opposed to a matter of months. And so that's what we're doing today. And looking at expanding that and taking it to the next level with a full wall system, and everything else. So that's where I find myself at today.
Well, let's dig into that a little bit. You're at a co-working type of business, and you've been doing that for a long, long time. How did you make that decision to go into the modular type of business? I mean, what made you take that massive action to do that?
A couple of things, but so when I took the job at Regis at the time, I would have probably thought I would have taken a bet with anyone that said I would be there longer than 4 years to begin with. 16 years later, I was still going through, like, is this really the right thing? Am I challenging myself enough? And I had gotten to a point where after 16 years, I knew I needed to expand, challenge myself even more. I'd done a lot of great things there, had a lot of great mentors and everything, but it was time. At the same time, I'd been working on a new brand concept inside of Regis, and I met some incredible people in the Palo Alto Bay Area that we were working with to design a new concept. And so we went everywhere. We toured Google space, we toured Facebook space, we toured, the who's who of flexible office space. We went to the Stanford Design Center, brought in droves of really incredible, creative, people to sit down and really talk about, what is space mean to you? What should it do for you? How could we design the best space in the world? And then we took a field trip out to Half Moon Bay, sat on the cliffs there, and it was just a very creative process. And I just got, consumed by it. Just this many smart people challenging the norms, challenging why, it was kind of like you felt like Steve Jobs was listening to people complain about their, crappy phone in their pocket. And you were like,
Yeah.
wow, okay, if we could do this, people would be really, really happy. And so through that process, a lot of it came with the ability to move walls, have flexibility, create groups and teams, and all the things that the business needs. Whereas really the way office space is designed is more about what construction needs, or what code needs. The people using it have a whole different list of what they'd like it to do. Construction people have a list of what they'll tell you it can or should do, and so through that, I just became like very fascinated with one concept, and that was, nobody has built the right space yet. Once you do, it's probably obsolete in the next 6 months, and we really need to get to a place where we can change how the space itself will work to support what you want to do, when you want to do it, so that you can deliver your best work. And that kind of just led me down a path which has coincided with kind of a big push and market shift towards modular furniture or modular construction, everything from hotels to houses to now office buildings, office pods. A lot of people are moving in this direction. And, I've talked to plenty of fascinating people, and there's quite a bit out there that's supporting this shift to mass customization, where you can give someone what they want, but give it to them at a price point that they love, with flexibility that's kind of unprecedented, but still customized so that it can be theirs and can be what they want when they need it. So it's just been kind of a fascinating trip.
Yeah, and timing as well, right? I mean, you got into the modular furniture, right in a time when COVID hits, and it's really changed. Everything's changing in the office space right now, and even the way we look at office space is changing.
Oh, yeah. I think that change has been happening and bubbling up for a long time. COVID hit and forced everybody. It's like, take the fear out of the equation. Your people are working from home. We are going to shut down, the office, and everyone's going to figure out a different place to work. And it forced people's hand in many ways to a level of uncomfort. But now people are finding out, there's a big way that we could support this. Some people are much happier with the freedom, more productive, others significantly less. And it just kind of goes back to proving what we already knew, which is everybody works a little bit different, and everybody needs access to different tools, different levels of support that can help support them with what they do, how they do it best, and finding the right way to do that through a mixture of things that you can make available to people, the technology to reserve it. You can make for a really fascinating, dynamic workplace. And with technology like we're on, you know, you can be everywhere you want to be in just about any amount of time, working right alongside and brainstorming with people who are thousands of miles away. It's pretty dynamic.
So, what does it look like in the future when you're talking to your clients and some of the people around the country that you're working with? Uh, what does it look like? What does the office space of the future look like to you?
Well, I think the most important thing there is the key to getting it right in the future is incorporating as much flexibility as possible. So, we have kind of migrated away from everybody gets a 200 square foot office, and that migration has happened. But then everyone went just, okay, wide open. And they're kind of chasing these trends instead of understanding what exactly do our people need, when it comes to privacy, productivity, collaboration, instead of just taking what we know finance wants us to do, which is get rid of 2/3 of our space, then force the reasoning down everyone's throat. If everyone remembers when we shifted to open office, it was, oh, there's going to be accidental collaboration where you just run into somebody and great ideas, just start popping, and, it'll be incredible. Well, that was really just everybody saying, look, everyone's getting a cubicle, be happy. You're going to sit at a desk and we're going to call it accidental collaboration so that finance is happy. And it worked. The square footage per person dropped. Finance was happy, but we're going to take a step further. And I think we're in the middle of doing that now, where people are realizing you don't necessarily need everybody in the office every day at one location. You might need a place to meet, to gather, agree with what's being done, and then move forward and move on. That could be ideal, for a lot of companies. And then it can also be multiple locations. Some people are great at home. Some people are terrible at home, but there's usually a great, well-outfitted co-working place nearby. So I think a hybrid of all those things, which leaves your real estate very flexible. You're not stuck with really big 10-year, lease terms, certainly not as many as you would have had in the past. And you could support a much more, virtual approach to getting everything done that you need to, and base the management off of the objectives, not just, are you in the office? Are you not in the office?
Right. So in the workplace, what percentage could be modular? I mean, I could move walls around? What percentage of my office?
Man, the people we talked to in Palo Alto, they wanted 90%. They wanted it on casters. They didn't want a single wall fixed. So when you're talking about the 10%, it was the kitchen, the bathrooms, everything else should be wide open. And on casters that lock down, give me the privacy I need to do what I need to do, but make it changeable. I'd say that's on the extreme. It's then you get like more back into, the Midwest or some parts of the South, and that hasn't been as adopted. And so the 20% of flexible modular space may be a lot for them. And they may not even think they need it. Much like you might not have thought you needed an iPhone, 10 years ago. Now we're all wondering how did we work without the iPhone 13,
Right.
So it's it kind of depends on the style of work that you do, what your company does, and where your employees are based. And there's different models all over the place. I think the one thing in getting into this space at different conferences and networking around the United States, there's so many different technologies that will measure what employees use, what works best, and there's so many different ways to adapt to that. But I guess where I would start with, I would say for many people. Find out accept one reality, and that is you'll never get it right. It will need to change, you know. So how much do you want to be able to change if and when you want to change it without having to go through a massive disruption, of a tenant improvement that might last a full year, just to modify your space. If you can hold off, you can still have beautiful looking offices, glass and everything else, and do it in a modular fashion that is reconstructible, reconfigurable, and a lot more friendly to the environment. And so you should maximize that, I would say.
And that was my next question. I've seen some of the product, and I've seen it in person as well. And for companies that are very image conscious, maybe you've got clients coming into your office, or when we get back to somewhat of a normal, your office space is very important the way it looks. How does that fit into what you're doing?
Well, so that comes to the mass customization part of the equation, which is what's so nice and unique about a system like ours or modularity, depending on where you get it, is you can find mass produced product that can be customized very easily. So in other words, like our panels consist of a frame, and inside that frame, there's a sandwiched board of materials, 4 different layers of materials that help with sound, privacy, keep it lightweight, and then decorative, right? So you can do any number of cool things with powder coating the aluminum, to designing the right finish, incorporating as much glass as you want. Glass, when most people think of aesthetics, think of really high-end dual pane glass, flush mounted. So we have all of those things that you can incorporate into the system so that you could make it as aesthetically pleasing as you want, right? Or as your budget permits.
Right. Okay. And I know you also have an air filtration system or panel. Tell me a
Yeah.
little bit about that, especially now with,
Yeah.
because I think what I read was it will actually it like captures the cough or captures the sneeze and then runs it through a filter.
Yeah, so when the pandemic hit in very early 2020, and we could see in California that the shutdown was going to occur, we knew big disruption was about to happen. We didn't know it was to this extent, but what we tried to find out from designers, architects, and everybody around the country was, where was the workspace going to need to be? Where were companies going to need to be met on the other side of this? And we're finding out right now, as people come back, you need to divide people, you need to create some barriers, and you need to clean the air. The one resource we all share if we're in the space is the air. And that just happens to be where it's transmitted the most. So we looked at all the things available in the market, and what we found was there really is nothing that blocks and filters the air. So we created a system called our Clean Zone system, which you can mount to your desk. You can put it on top of your desk. You can carry it around with you however you want, but it'll actually incorporate into a desk panel, which acts as a barrier and a sound absorbing barrier. And as you cough, exhale, or sneeze, it'll actually capture the air, run it through 5 layers of filtration, a HEPA filter, UVC light, before then releasing it, out into the shared workspace. And that's been a phenomenal product. And the one thing that a lot of people don't understand, as we get people back to work, COVID and others, it's most contagious when people don't realize they have it.
Mm-hmm.
So the time you're waiting for somebody to start coughing and feeling ill, that's when it's already taken place. So this is a great way to, bring it into the workspace, provide your people with a reminder that you care about them, B, a way for them to be productive, provide them with clean air. The data on clean air is unbelievable. Even if you take COVID out of the equation, just your ability to think straight, not have to have as much caffeine, your cognitive thinking levels go stay at a peak performance all day long with that. So yeah, that's been a huge success for us. Kind of on accident, we were just trying to figure out how we can best help people, with where things were heading, and we came up with that.
Great. And so it kind of seems to me, in listening to your story, you went from somewhat of a corporate type of a job, let's say, and more to one with a little bit more entrepreneurial spirit. Would that be correct?
Yeah, I would say I always have had the entrepreneurial spirit. Let's get in and figure out what people want and need and help make their lives better. That's always been a big driver for me, which is part of back to one of my original comments, at Regis. So I thought I wouldn't be there very long because it was such a fast growing, big, fast moving, endeavor that every year was more challenging, and we had a lot of freedom to do a lot of those things. But that's always been a part of who I am, part of what's inside of me and what drives me, and kind of that competitive athlete to want to make things better all the time.
So, what is your advice, or maybe the best advice that you were given on how to think about or how to make that move to something that is really more inspiring to you?
Wow. There has been so many layers of incredible advice. I'm going to give you one that came more later after I made the jump. And it resonated a lot with me after, but, and a lot of the friends that we share, contact wise, almost every successful person that I interact with and I'm talking like next level success, right? Not just moderate success, has all told me they have in some form or fashion found a way to get much more in touch with what their unique talent is, how to use that talent to impact lives of others, and to find quiet time to become recentered, in their personal life or quest, which has made them, sharper. And most of it boils down to a form of meditation that they do in the morning and in the evening. And if I had that advice earlier on in my career, now knowing how powerful it's been for me, and I know it's kind of seems a little bit out there, but the ability to stay focused and sharp, and to have that inner belief that like what you're doing is right, because the entrepreneurial world is very cruel and harsh, and you're told that you're not good enough, or it's never going to work, or a lot. And if you don't have the belief and you can't get centered every single day, morning and night, it's very easy to get off track and to lose focus. So I think when you're at a point when you can dive into, what's your superpower, what is your unique ability to make a change and impact people's lives, the more you can stay in touch with that, and focus. And I would just say through meditation, whether you follow different people who, are experts at that, with Deepak Chopra or whomever else. But most of the people found it not because they wanted to become a person of meditation. They found it because they wanted something else, and somebody steered them to it. And when they started doing it, they found out they were 10 times better, more likely, more clear-headed, and more productive. And they got there 10 times faster than they thought they ever could have. And, that's a lot of people talk about it in many different terms. And I can just say, once you start experiencing that, your whole level of belief, confidence, and clarity just kind of goes through the roof. So whatever it is that somebody's doing, it really, it sounds a bit out there, but it's way more practical than it ever can sound. I don't know your experience with it or lack thereof, but.
Well, I was going to say, in doing this podcast, 90% of the people that I talk to, I'm going to estimate, are doing some form of meditation. So it's really, and I don't know if I've just been aware of it lately because I've been doing some of that myself, and I'm starting to hear that more often. That may be part of it. But thanks for sharing that, because I do think that is important. And And again, every really successful person that I'm talking to has some form of meditation or just centering themselves every day. And so more and more, I think it's a key.
Well, yeah, and one of the things that really resonated with me was as I started down that path, and it relates directly to entrepreneurialism, is one of the key goals in it is to learn to thrive in a world of uncertainty, where you actually you create a hunger for uncertainty because everything's going to be okay. You're going to navigate through it. It's going to be fine. And you'll rely on your own ability to become centered and navigate through it. And that's where your greatest successes will come from. Well, that's entrepreneurialism, right?
Yeah,
If
yeah.
you need
It's like,
something safe and you need it defined and you have all these human constructs that have to be there for you to be okay, then the entrepreneurialism is probably not for you. And that's obviously fine. But that meditation really helps with that. And it helps teach you how to thrive in a world of uncertainty, which is exactly what we live in.
yeah, I agree. I think big things happen when you get to that space of the unknown, right?
Yeah.
That's where it really happens. You don't want the predictable stuff,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
You've
That's
been through that already.
blank.
Yeah. Well,
But it
Sandy,
is,
thanks so much.
we all find ourselves falling into those traps where it's like, I just kind of want it to feel predictable. I want to
Every
know
day.
that
Yeah.
the footing is, and then it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
you got to learn to thrive when it's not, and almost welcome that. It's really, so I could not be more thankful to the people who turned me on to that, who I talk to about that regularly. That by far and away has been the most powerful, light that's gone off, for me, that people have suggested, and I have taken it wholeheartedly, and it's affected everything from diet, exercise, and business practices and personal life. It's been amazing.
Sandy, great stuff. I really appreciate it. This has been fantastic. Continued success, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Talk to you soon.
Okay. Thanks.